It's time for Taking Care of Business on Midlands 103. With thanks to the local enterprise offices of Leash, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. I'm Ronan Berry, this is Midlands 103, and coming up over the next hour, from a local forecourt in Cloughan to winning Store of the Year at the 2026 XL Retail Awards. This is a Midlands business success story built on community, service and innovation. Martin Grogan of Cloughan Service Station will join me in a while to discuss retail excellence, sustainability, customer loyalty and what it takes to stand out in a highly competitive sector. Also, what happens when you bring together entrepreneurs, policymakers, business leaders and change makers from across the Midlands and Europe? Well, MEP Ciarán Mullooly will join me later to discuss a major upcoming conference focused on empowering women, shaping future policy and unlocking the untapped economic potential of rural Ireland. If you want to join this evening's conversation, you can do so by text or WhatsApp on 083 3010 103, or if you want, you can give me an email, business@midlands103.com. But to begin this evening, I'm going to go back to a topic that we first started discussing last week, and again, we put that as being part one. We're going to follow up now with part two, and it was all around cybersecurity in manufacturing and the threats that are rapidly escalating and evolving, because cybersecurity threats are evolving rapidly in that sector, as you would have heard last week, and manufacturers are increasingly finding themselves on the front line. As factory systems become more connected and IT and operational technology continue to merge, the risks facing industry are changing dramatically too. To continue this discussion, I'm delighted to be joined again by Caitríona Mordan of the ATIM cluster, Tim Wadey, Head of Advisory with Logicalis UK and Ireland, and Rob Nolan, Head of IT with CJ Sheeran, to discuss why manufacturing businesses are now a major target for cyber criminals, what companies are learning from recent assessments, and the practical steps firms can take to reduce risk before an incident occurs. We'll begin with Caitríona Mordan. Caitríona, just a recap on why the ATIM cluster held that recent workshop and maybe some of the key things that we learned on last week's show.
Yeah, thanks Ronan for having us on again. For the workshop, we held it on the 28th of April. It was called Secure and Efficient Manufacturing. So essentially, it's one of our 4 working groups within the ATIM cluster. Our goal, and I suppose our raison d'etre, is to support companies tackle shared challenges through strategic collaboration. And I think a really important part of that is two aspects. One, companies can learn so much from each other, and through that they're able to share knowledge of best practice and what they're actually doing together. But also it's really important to accelerate and tackling some of these challenges, that we're able to bring in expertise in areas that are really supporting the companies. And then the last piece there is that it's not just an event or a workshop, it's a continued support mechanism and momentum that we're able to bring in expertise and that peer-to-peer piece throughout the journey, regardless of where that company is starting, around subjects, as you mentioned here, like cybersecurity.
And you based that workshop on feedback from members, looking at what their needs were. And again, we kind of see the power of collaboration, because you get so many manufacturers in the room, and it's probably an understatement to say they probably all discover that the challenges they face are quite similar across the boards.
Absolutely. And I think even from the time that I started in the role to now, we really need to look at, companies are, as you mentioned, are increasingly become a threat, as they adopt digital tools. That also increases their level of risk in terms of being attacked. And I think one of the stats from last week was that manufacturing companies, there's an increase to 54% in the number of attacks that they're, being at the front end, at the back end of as well. So it's really important that as we want to grow our competitiveness, not just within one company, but as a sector and as an Irish, within our economic aspect as well, that we're able to work collaboratively. And a really fundamental part of that is sharing a little bit more what's happening and how do we not just tackle this from within a company's 4 walls, but strategically collaborate so that we can ring fence and support the sector, more importantly, around these huge challenges now that they're facing.
And even on a simple level, I took a lot of notes from Simon Walsh last week from Trend Micro. He mentioned about that one old PC that's in every office, and often it's payroll or something like that, and the vulnerabilities around that. I've come across 2 instances of that with clients this week, and you're kind of going, yeah, this is really prevalent. But also your thing about AI being like an axe. You can use it to chop firewood or to chop fingers. And I've had a lot of thought on the negative or nearly the dark side of AI too, particularly from a business context. So you've certainly got, and lots of people got in touch with us here and through midlands103.com and by the email as well, just asking questions around cybersecurity. I'm going to go across to Tim Wadey now. Tim is head of advisory with Logicalis UK and Ireland and was one of the speakers at that recent workshop. Tim, you described the factory floor as being the front line. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's becoming the front line in the war between the cyber criminals and people trying to do their daily job. And one of the reasons is because at an increasing pace, the OT systems, the computers that control the machines on the factory floor, are being put on the IT network. But the standards that we've generally managed the different systems by have been different. In the past, the OT systems were isolated, so it could continue running without a huge threat. But as we put them on the network for all the good reasons of moving data to them really quickly, of allowing them to be serviced by third-party suppliers really easily, not having to come to site and plug a laptop in, we're exposing them to the internet, so obviously through firewalls and the like, but we're exposing vulnerable systems to the internet, which is the very front line of all of cyber crime.
Why do you think has that become so attractive for cyber criminals then? Is it purely based on the fact that some of these are very large manufacturing operations and they maybe just know how much disruption they could cause and therefore how much money they might get?
Yeah, I mean, cybercrime is now an international business. It has no borders. It can operate anywhere from the internet. And as the Jaguar Land Rover attacks last year demonstrated, very effectively, they can cause a massive, massive disruption. And with that massive disruption, they're able to extort money, fines for ransomware, for example. And whilst JLR perhaps didn't pay, many smaller companies below the radar would feel obliged to pay to just get back online and to start operations again.
You mentioned that convergence of IT and OT systems. How fundamentally has that changed the threat landscape? And is it something that is kind of a recent discovery by many companies that, again, you said the goodwill, they were doing it in the best will in the world to kind of open up their systems, share that data did they really not appreciate the scale of the threat?
I think it's been there all the time. I came across it 15 years ago in a concrete mixing factory in the UK. But the speed of change and the way people are doing it is being forced. It drives efficiencies in the way that the networks across the plant run. It means that the people that are programming the machines with whatever commands they're doing, moving a design to a milling machine that needs it to mill a piece of material, that can all be much more efficient, much more accurate, much more timely, and in many ways much more secure because it's not going on to a floppy disk or a memory stick and passed out. But it means that we have to think about those machines in the OT environment in exactly the same way as we do our laptops, and think about how the antivirus, how the patching, how all of those security considerations are brought to bear to protect that critical asset.
What are the most common vulnerabilities that you are repeatedly seeing across industry?
So we're seeing old machines, that we discussed that last week. We're seeing things like sensors, temperature sensors or heating controls that haven't got the ability to even be patched. So they're deployed, they're sent out, packaged up, they're put on a network. People don't really think about it, but it may have a vulnerability that someone discovers maybe years later. And the other key issue is, whereas we tend to change our laptops every 3 to 5 years, as they become outdated. And people like when Microsoft send out new packages like the recent Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration, once you've bought an expensive piece of kit and put it on the factory floor, people are going to sweat that asset. So they're going to keep it, for a long time, whether that's got a computer in it or whether it's got something like a sensor in it. As it sits there for a long time, other people will find the vulnerabilities in it.
As I say, I've had numerous instances of that outdated machine, which is still an integral part of operations because it has a software on it for whatever function, and and attempts have been made to maybe upgrade that, but the software won't function on a newer machine. So I think everybody listening last week is definitely checking machines around their workplace or their client companies too. But when it comes to the timing of these attacks too, are factories also vulnerable maybe outside of normal working hours, or if there is like 24-hour shift work or weekend work, is that a factor, and is that something that criminals are also aware of?
A lot of these attacks happen on a Friday evening, just as people go home. I mean, even better still on a bank holiday Friday, when they know that no one's going to be really attending to it till Tuesday morning. There was an attack just after Christmas last year in Poland, where reputedly Russian state actors took down a number of wind farms and solar farms, or they attempted to. They didn't actually stop them delivering electricity. And they also had an attack on a power plant, a combined heat and power plant that serviced about 500,000 people within a city. And they timed that for the coldest day during that Christmas holiday period. So yes, they're looking to wreak the maximum havoc, and to have the longest time to exploit the systems they're attacking without having a full team on the ground to protect them.
Tim is going to stay with us because after the break we're going to look into some real life examples on that, because through the work Tim has done with the cluster and subsequent follow-ups as well with client companies, there's a lot of actions taken from that. You would have heard them from Caitríona last week, and they're already happening, such as the scale of the threat. I'm going to bring Rob in briefly because Rob is head of IT with the CJ Sheeran Group as well. Rob, what was it first kind of whetted your appetite to engage with the cluster around this particular topic?
I think the key driver for us was really the peer group within the cluster, and for CJ Sheeran to understand, okay, what are the key risks within the sector? What are the key risks specifically then to CJ Sheeran through the assessment? Once we identified those risks, it was then about working with our peers within the cluster itself and also within Logicalis to how do we prioritise those risks and how do we put a plan in place then to mitigate the risks.
I'm sure CJ Sheeran, like any company, given the scale of the growth, the development, the real shift towards lean processes, it's probably highlighted lots of vulnerabilities. It's probably a very exciting journey, but probably one that has thrown up plenty of challenges. Give us a sense of scale of just CJ's operations at the minute, like right across the country.
Yeah, well, we operate in a number of sectors. Pharmaceutical, food and beverage, engineering and agriculture. So we have multiple sites right across the country. Majority of these sites work within the packaging and the production of timber pallets, but we have a quite diversified business model. So as we start to integrate more and more businesses, as we start to grow those sites, as Tim hit on, you're starting to expose your business more and more to potential vulnerabilities. A lot of the focus now for manufacturing companies is really around integrating your systems. So that's the convergence of IT systems with OT systems, so the systems that really drive your production facility. You really want to target the value data that sits within those systems, but trying to access that data is also allowing potential vulnerabilities to traverse across your network. So it's important that you move forward with security in mind, that you plan those integrations, understanding the risk that exists and also understanding that you need to mitigate those risks throughout your business.
It sounds like it's really the biggest concern previously might have been the loss of production or a bit of downtime, but that real risk of a data breach or losing that data or a cyber attack is becoming very real and very prevalent. We'll come back to Rob on that after a break, and we'll look at exactly what's happened post that workshop by ATIM Cluster and the immediate steps that companies can take to make sure they can, number one, find those vulnerabilities and then go to plug those potential gaps. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
I'm joined by Caitríona Mordan, manager of ATIM Cluster, Tim Wadey, head of advisory with Logicalis UK and Ireland, and Rob Nolan, head of IT with CJ Sheeran. And we're here discussing cybersecurity in manufacturing and the very real threats that are now facing manufacturers, predominantly linked to the emergence or convergence of your IT systems and your OT systems. We're all chasing data. We all want the best data, the biggest data we can find, but it's potentially open up vulnerabilities within our companies. And before the break, we heard from Tim and Rob especially talking about the real threats that are there for companies. I'm going to go back to Rob on that now. I suppose, Rob, when did you in CJ first start seeing these vulnerabilities and kind of start realising we need to maybe start investigating these and just ensure that we have protected all our systems?
A lot of it came from really looking through the supply chain. So Tim hit on the fact that, there's a lot of cases out there of both large and small organisations being compromised and having to mitigate those risks and vulnerabilities that they are exposed to in the current market. For our business, it was really to try and ensure that we were putting the necessary protections in place that type of event didn't impact production in particular within CJ Sheeran's. So really, it is about ensuring that we're as resilient, that our systems are reliable, and that our uptime is unaffected by a cyber incident.
If it comes to machineries, I saw one in Coolrain Sawmills, like it was a log handler where you'd bought a special machine that can lift logs higher because it means you didn't need to create more storage space, you could stack logs higher. When it comes to like cybersecurity, is it a harder sell to senior management to invest in new systems, or is there a renewed awareness that we have to get this right?
I think that awareness is in place now, because cyber security now and security protections, even when you talk about those systems, it may not just impact your production processes, it's also a safety concern when you're in a manufacturing environment. Any kind of exposure you have to a cyber attack, yes, it could impact sensitive data, it could impact your production capability, and there's also a threat to life. So with that in mind, it's really become a business necessity now. It's not just an IT task or an IT responsibility to ensure that you are protected. It's an entire business proposal and a business strategy now to ensure that cybersecurity is in place.
We take it back to that workshop that happened only the week before last. What were the key takeaways from you, and what have you started doing straight away based on what you learned at the workshop?
The real thing for us was really to start to readdress how we were forming our cybersecurity strategy. So the workshop helped to form, okay, here's a pathway that can be more appropriate to our line of business and also more specific to our particular business, as well as relying on the other partners that we had and colleagues that we had within the workshop itself. So it helps us to take what would have been, let's say, a standard industry-wide cybersecurity strategy and readdress it through the lens of, okay, this is how manufacturing is being targeted at the moment, and this is the potential risks that face CJ Sheeran. So it helped really reform that strategy and make it more practical to our business.
Caitríona, that was something I'd imagine you wanted from that workshop, people to come out with real action items, because I know you've also linked them with companies like Logicalis and Trend Micro to allow them advance that.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, that's not going to end today or tomorrow. It's about a journey, and a journey that we're taking as a cluster to support the members as well. But, some of the things that we want to look at, it was mentioned around the importance of having top table discussions and strategies. What does an AI policy look like? How, as we're accelerating the adoption of AI, increasing the level of risk, what does a good strategy look like if a company hasn't started that already? How do we map all of the IT and the OT assets across the organisation is a fundamental key step as well. So we're there now to kind of support the members, as are Logicalis and Trend Micro, along with other experts that we're able to engage as well, to really as the needs arise from each of the members and the members as a collective, that we're there to support them along the way.
Tim, just give us an idea of the type of work then that you were doing with cluster members there in order to support them on this, because again, we've established it was a clear consensus and certainly an appetite to make sure companies are suitably protected.
So we used it as an input for the day and following up now. We ran a series of assessments. A number of the members who were there filled these in, and we're now doing follow-up meetings with them to go through their assessments and to point out where we think there are areas for improvement and areas that they are reasonably strong. The other thing that we would recommend is we live in a world of increasing governance, and the NIS2 legislation, which will be enacted in Ireland quite shortly, provides a sort of a bit of a heavy hammer to hit people who it directly affects, in terms of a lot of regulation that requires a lot of investment and checking and compliance activity. But what comes with something like NIS2 is a checklist of good practice. And we would recommend that, all the members start with that as a checklist and work through it, and at least understand where they are on that journey, prioritize their next steps to pick off the key things, such as board level involvement, or as Caitríona was saying, understanding the entire asset map so that you can actually protect it, because if you don't know it's there, you can't protect it. So there are some real practical steps people can take to move forwards and to improve their security.
Rob mentions supply chains, actually, as they looked and examined their own supply chains. Are you noticing that too, that maybe smaller companies are being now forced by the larger companies to really make sure they have their house in order?
We're not seeing that a lot yet, but we know it's coming. It came with things like ISO 9000 when that was popular a few years ago. The bigger companies would just say, we're only going to talk with you if you're signed up to and got this certification. And we're sure that people will flow down. If they're subject to NIS2, they will flow that legislation down, or they'll ask for a different set of proof to show that you are secure, you're secure to connect to. Because, of course, the supply chain isn't just, CJ Sheeran supplying pallets to a major manufacturer. The supply chain is also the electronic connection between that manufacturer and CJ Sheeran that allows them to transfer data about those orders seamlessly to reduce the friction in the supply chain. And that, of course, opens up a route into the supply chain. If someone could get into CJ Sheeran or into one of the other parts of the supply chain, they will find it easier to attack the whole of that chain. So, yeah, it's really important.
Indeed. And Rob, is that something that, you could have hackers who decide they're going to spend all day, every day targeting manufacturing companies, and for something like CJ Sheeran, it's a huge part of your day, but for some companies that maybe don't have someone like yourself, a head of IT, it's hard to give it the focus that it needs to. It's a difficult one, I'd imagine, for some companies to balance.
Yeah, it is. And, hackers are spending all day, every day, trying to target companies like ourselves, larger businesses and smaller businesses. So I think back to the business awareness, it's really important that no matter what size business you're operating, you bring the business into the conversation. Everybody around the table has to understand the risk that their business faces. And, whether it is a case of you potentially could have a cyber breach that is going to impact your production lines, or whether it's a case that, okay, we're operating a supply line that could potentially impact other businesses up or down that supply line, it's important that you reference back to the different frameworks that are in place so that you can meet those controls. So if you're taking on a cybersecurity strategy, if you're putting controls in place to try and protect your business, back to Tim's point, it's also worthwhile to reference back to the likes of NIS2 and ensure that the controls you're putting in place also align with that framework and help give you a pathway then to enforce that compliance in your business.
I'd say many people listening have probably done similar with, as Tim mentioned, ISO 9001. You can start working to that framework, write your policies, start operating with a view towards implementing it eventually, then go and do it. I think it's a very sound piece of advice around NIS too as well. Caitríona, from a cluster perspective then, how are you going to continue like this working group, to kind of further develop this topic? And I suppose for anybody listening who wants to kind of be part of this, how can they do that?
Yeah, so first, I know that Tim and his colleagues are working with all of the companies that filled out the assessments. So we'll work collaboratively then, understand where some of the needs might be still arising from that, take those needs and then take our next steps in terms of the practical development and support that we can offer the companies involved with that working group as well.
Absolutely. I think well done, because we've had huge engagement on this topic, even myself through LinkedIn there. It's clearly a topic that is at the top of many people's agendas, and I think it's fantastic to see, again, the collaboration, the collaborative effect, linking people with those specialists in that areas, and ultimately a cluster of companies looking to protect each other. Caitríona Mordan, a pleasure as always. Tim Wadey over in the UK, thank you for joining this evening, and Rob Nolan, Head of IT with CJ Sheeran. Thank you so much for coming across this evening. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this down the line. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you, Ronan, for having us.
There we go. So that's part 2 of that series. All is available as a podcast on midlands103.com. I think lots of food for thought, lots of good tips, lots of good advice there. We'll maybe put it into one little piece of audio or podcast and stick it up online too, because undoubtedly one you might want to listen back to. Time for me to take another quick break. After that, though, you're going to meet the owner of a Midlands service station that just picked up 3 national awards.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
A local Offaly business has picked up some of the biggest honours in Irish retail, winning Store of the Year, Best Forecourt and Best Sustainability Initiative at the 2026 Excel Retail Awards. Cloughan Service Station has become something of a destination business in the Midlands, combining retail innovation, customer service and community engagement in an increasingly competitive sector. I'm delighted to be joined in studio by Martin Grogan to discuss the journey behind the business, the change in nature of convenience retail and what the award means for the team and the wider community. Very good evening, Martin, and welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks very much for having me, Ronan.
The celebrations have died down a little bit, have they?
Yeah, we're over it now, yeah. We're happy out.
A huge achievement, I suppose. Take us back, because the Cloughan Service Station, it's a relatively new, it's 2-3 years on the go?
Yeah, we opened in January 23, so we're into our 4th year now of trading, so we're happy the way things are going so far.
Take us through the original idea, like greenfield site, was it, or a full?
Yeah, it was land that was owned by my father, and I suppose we had talked about it for years, and then I had emigrated over to Canada for a couple of years, and we were talking about it on and off, and we sort of made the decision that we'd go ahead. So I moved home, and we started drawing up plans and doing a bit of research and seeing if it was a viable option.
The original plans that you had in mind, what you ended up building, was there much difference, or did it grow bigger, or did it get smaller?
It got a little bit bigger, and I suppose it's not your traditional looking filling station, as the building is towards the front, and I suppose that was something that Offaly County Council had suggested, so we were happy enough to go along with that with our architects. So.
And was that a key part of it, in creating something that would stand out for people who are, be it passing the road or within the area, or did it present a kind of a challenge in terms of the layout of the site?
Yeah, it presented a bit of a challenge, I suppose, because we were backwards by all means, but I suppose thankfully a local architect, Peter Lyons, took that problem and made it into what we have today. So,
and then in terms of the layout, you had plans for car wash, very specific. Where did you look? Did you look at other service stations around the country? Was there one you had in mind, or something to model it on, or how did you come up with the overall master plan for it then?
I suppose we did view a lot of service stations around Ireland and the new ones on all the motorways. So, and then we went into some of the bigger ones in the rural towns, because we wanted to get a hybrid of both. So that's, I suppose, where we took our initial ideas from.
Because there's been a real shift over the last 5 or 10 years as to what people maybe expect or demand from a service station now. When it comes to something like the food, how do you go about picking and choosing the types of food, or the deli, or the quality or standard of food that you want to serve to people?
Yeah, I suppose that that's a work in progress, as people's habits and trends change. So we have our traditional breakfast on, and then people are looking for fast, convenient, healthy food now. There's a lot of people looking for protein, and people are very conscious of their health now, so you have to cater for that in the grab and go section, and try to keep your customers happy and coming back.
Yeah, the breakfast roll was always that symbol of Celtic Tiger Ireland. Is it as popular these days as it always was, or are those guys and girls becoming even more health focused now?
Yeah, it's certainly still popular, but I suppose the roll has been replaced by the wrap now. And but no, we do definitely still have that as a major part of our food offering at the moment. So long may it continue. And
of course, good coffee, and then all the various milks and different things to go with it as well. It must be a bit of a minefield trying to keep up to speed with all the latest trends and fads.
Yeah, it is challenging. We're with Bewley's at the moment as our coffee offering, and I suppose we are in the process now of maybe entering the oat milk and the non-dairy milk option. So yeah, it is changing a lot. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
From an operating hours perspective, how is it 24/7, or how long do you open, and what's that like managing a very dynamic business?
No, it's not 24/7, probably thankfully, but it's 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we open up at 6 a.m. 6 days a week, and we're just straight at it, get the ovens on and get the food out, and you generally see the public who come in 20 past 6, and they'll be expecting breakfast, and they're expecting sausage rolls. So it's all about having that consistency there, that we're on time every day, that they know they're going to get what they want when they come into us.
Yeah, the repeat business is probably huge now. People are probably travelling the country, because Cloughan is deceptively busy little kind of crossroads in the middle of Offaly.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of passing trade, and I suppose that was one of the main reasons we decided to go with this enterprise, because Cloughan is very much a hub for traffic. So, and the truck stop wasn't really catered for like an hour either side of Cloughan. So we felt there was an opportunity there. So that's why we went for it.
And you went with the XL franchise too. Was that always part of the plan, or?
No, well, we were going to have to partner with someone, and BWG, who own XL, came in with a good offer, and I suppose I know one of the workers from BWG, Paddy Mulhare. He's the local Cloughan man, and he introduced me to Barry Egerton, who would be my lead BWG rep, and we just developed a good relationship, and it's working so far, and we're very happy where we're at.
It's clearly working, because we have 3 awards to go through as well. I mean, Store of the Year, picking up at the XL Awards. Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you don't get that for nothing, like.
No, I suppose you don't. It's a lot of hard work and effort, and I suppose we're delighted we won it. And when you see the stores that were called out in that category, I looked at my wife at the time and I said, I don't think we're going to get it this year, but thankfully we got it over the line.
They're the best ones. I know you had a lovely Facebook post up there on Sunday, and you paid tribute to like the customers, the community, the staff as well. So clearly, for something like that, you need to have a good team behind you. How do you go about finding the right people and creating that winning culture in a local area?
Yeah, staff is so important. Like, we're blessed. Like, I suppose when we did start trying to find this team, we got lucky with a lot. They're still there from day one, and they're very, very much the life and soul of it. They come in every day, and they're good with the customers, and they produce good food, and they care. So it helps us to offer the services and the standards we do because of our staff.
I said that was only one of 3 as well. You picked up an award for Best Sustainability Initiative. What type of things did you do to qualify for that and ultimately take the top award?
Yeah, I suppose when we built it originally, because water has become such an issue, and we installed like rain harvesting tanks because we have so much roof space. We wanted to reuse our water because water bills are a big problem now, and so all our grey water is we harvest our own, and so thankfully that controls that element of the business. And last year we installed a new solar panel system on the roof, 117 kilowatts, because, as we all know, energy prices are climbing, and we have to get ahead of it and control it somewhat.
And a big investment at still an early stage of a business too, but one that you clearly, I guess, probably driven by necessity, but you can see a return of investment on that then.
Yeah, it was very much a big investment so early into our project, but we felt we had to do something to try to get ahead and have some sort of control over what's going on around us.
Yeah. Now, the aforementioned Peter Lyons will probably take a lot of credit for this other one, but forecourt of the year too, another big one to scoop as well. What again do you think was the thing that really set you apart there?
Yeah, I suppose our forecourt is pretty large and spacious, and I said it at the awards, but I did say to Peter in one of our first or second meetings that we want to be able to cater for the articulated lorry and the driver to come in and get his food, but we also wanted to cater for the elder driver that was coming in to get the paper, meet one of their friends, have a coffee. So everyone is kind of welcome, and they feel comfortable coming in, that it's not tight, that there's space for everyone.
I know two people who are probably listening now, I think, to stop in there on their way to Clonfert, this time of year, so you're absolutely getting all sides of it there too. No, it's a phenomenal achievement, to pick up those three awards again so early in the journey for the service station too. What was it like? I suppose I have to ask, when fuel prices are going up and down, what's it like? When you're running a service station like that, are people a little bit more accepting that it's out of your control to some extent?
Yeah, by and large, obviously people know that there's a war going on, and we're at the bottom of the food chain really. When we supply the diesel and petrol, but yeah, it's difficult because it was fluctuating so much day to day. Like, it was always up and down every day, a couple of cents here, but like it was dropping 10 cent, 15 cent over 2 or 3 days, and you were at the whim of a tweet from
one person.
Person.
I read an article the other day where I think he did 90 posts in something like 2 hours there last week. All of which can shock markets and change prices of oil and everything. It's amazing. But again, it's another. These challenges come. You meet them, you overcome them, and you push ahead as well. Sounds like a good move overall to build a service station.
Yeah, I suppose we're still in its infancy, and we are working hard. And some days you'd wake up and you'd wonder. But more often than not, we're happy and we keep going, and we try to keep our customers happy, who have been very good to us. And I've met I wouldn't say friends from all over the country that keep coming back, and you wouldn't see them for a couple of weeks and you wonder is that man all right, but he'd be back in then and we'd be chatting away. So we do you do form those little connections.
Super, that's the brilliant description of customer service, and if every business could do that, they would all benefit from it. And again, just at such a lovely intersection point of the country there, kind of east to west, north to south, and you've created a destination for them. Congrats on the awards, and all more power to you as you move ahead. Martin Grogan, thanks a million for coming in this evening.
Thanks very much, Ronan.
Not at all, a pleasure. There you go. What a fantastic local success story as well. And like that, these awards, they don't happen by accident. Speaking of awards, if you have been shortlisted for Midlands 103 Customer Service Awards, that event is taking place on Monday the 8th of June. Tickets are on sale now, but they are selling out fast, so make sure to get in touch with Nathan or the team here in Midlands 103, or go on to midlands103.com if you need to secure your ticket. Time now for a very short break. After that, a major conference taking place in Athlone on Friday, and its focus will be on female entrepreneurship and how we can encourage more rural innovation.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
My plan was to wrap up this evening's episode by speaking to a local MEP. I think he's busy in Strasbourg at the minute. We're trying to get him on the phone. So while I do that, here's a little bit of music and I'll be back in just a couple of moments. And if not, I'll give you all the details anyway of that event that's focusing on female entrepreneurship that's taking place in Athlone on Friday of this week. Brian Kennedy would put the message in the box. We're going to have to put my message in the box and get it across. I was meant to be joined by MEP Kieran Mullooly. I know he's actually overseas in Strasbourg at the minute, so probably caught up there on urgent business. Kieran was going to talk to me about a conference that is largely at his organisation. I think I said Athlone earlier in the show. It's actually Mullingar. It's taking place this coming Friday. So it's hosted by MEP Kieran Mullooly of Renew Europe. And it's about empowering women, connecting and shaping future policy. So Friday the 22nd of May in the Mullingar Park Hotel from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is jam-packed with amazing keynote speakers. The MC for the event will be Orla Thornton, Director of Marketing Communications at TUS Loan. And you'll hear from an impressive lineup of speakers there, including Anne Herity, the founder of CPL Group and former president of IBEC, Ashley MacDonald, founder of Ireland Fashion Week, Tara Farrell, CEO of Longford Women's Link, and Dr Martina Roach of NUI Minute. From a sporting angle, Olympian Gráinne Walsh will be there, rugby star Anna McGann, and local woman Sarah Dillon, a PhD researcher and GAA player. Regina Bushell from Athlone Chamber, the recently sworn in again for a third term as president of Athlone Chamber, will also address that meeting. So again, it's all focused on female entrepreneurship and really encouraging and unlocking the potential of female entrepreneurs in the rural and local regions too. So Mullingar Park Hotel from 10 a.m. next Tuesday. If you just put into, if you want to secure a place, you can email Bridmary, that's BRIDMARY.Gordon at la.Europa.RL, so EUROPARL.Europa.EU. Now there's one that really rolls off the tongue. I'll give you all that again. So it's Bridmary, BRIDMARY.Gordon, GORDON at la.EUROPARL.EUROPA.EU. If not, just put in Renew Europe Women in Business Conference at Athlone or Mullingar and you'll get all the key details you need. Fantastic list of speakers there, really powerful and inspiring female business leaders and sporting leaders too. So that's taking place in Mullingar this Friday. I mentioned earlier too, the Midlands 103 Customer Service Awards will be handed out at a gala dinner in the Tullamore Court Hotel on Monday the 8th of June. Tickets are still on sale for that event, but if you have been shortlisted and you're looking at getting out there to celebrate, or you want to bring your team out to celebrate, by all means get on to midlands103.com quickly or get in touch with the station here and look for Nathan Green and make sure that you're not left disappointed by not getting tickets for that gala celebration. That's bringing Taking Care of Business to a close for this evening. Just say a huge thank you to all Sister Stephen's contributors, to Caitríona Mordan from ATIM Cluster, Tim Wadey from Logic Hallis UK, and Rob Nolan from CJ Sheeran. And a big shout out to Martin Grogan there from Grogan Service Station in Cloughan on picking up those 3 major awards. Councillor John Lahey, Cathaoirleach of Offaly County Council, has just texted as well to say congratulations to Martin and the Grogan family on the recent achievements. That comes from John and all the team at Lahey Midland Auctioneers. That's it. Time for me to go. Joe's here next with Country Roads. I'll talk to you all next week from 7. Take care.